Welcome to another episode of Get Wisdom. I'm Brian Kelly, along with Get Wisdom founder and director, Carl Mollison. This week, Creator explains winning and losing streaks in sports. Now, if you're not a sports fan, you still want to listen to this episode, because what we're really going to do is explore the karmic dynamics behind groups that actually change faces, change personalities, and yet somehow the group itself has a karma that seems to follow it and persist. And we're going to use sports as a way to explore that, but it's really applicable to a lot of groups, Carl.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. This is the dynamic of life and energetics of consciousness, moving out and about, making things happen, and bringing consequences. And it applies across the board at all levels of human experience. And many times the group phenomena are more or less a magnification of the smaller settings, the individual, the partnering and marriage, the family unit, and so on. And it's just a kind of a larger aggregate of influences. And it's fascinating in its way. So
absolutely.
We'll have some really intriguing things to share about this.
Indeed. There were definitely some surprises that came with this topic. Let's get into it. So the Detroit Lions, an NFL football team, for our listeners across the globe, have a long history of playing tough, bruising football, but somehow always ended up losing in the final minutes, often in the most unexpected, yet expected ways, from fans' perspective. The wonder isn't whether they'll lose. Fans can actually feel the loss coming. It's how it happens that is usually unexpected. A terrible, inexplicable penalty call by a referee, a miraculous catch by the opposing team in spite of good defensive play, a rarely made mistake on the part of a key player, etc. How much does the sheer expectation of losing on the part of fans and even the team itself play into creating these forever repeating outcomes?
Okay, and so we asked this question of Creator, who I channel, and this is what Source Creator says. This is an insightful question because you are probing a dimension people do not think of normally. The idea of being cursed is universally understood, but not all believe in the ability for that to happen. In a sense, this is a more profound eventuality because it is a collective cursing that represents the sum total of negativity on the part of players and fans and their management and coaching staff that builds within and comes to the fore on game days. And the energies go forth and will target the players on the field in particular. And then less so those governing their actions involved behind the scenes. But all are influenced by the negative energies swirling about. This creates a perfect backdrop and potential for disaster when there is a building history of failure through repeated losses. If this continues through a season and then recurs in the subsequent season, the die is cast for a major karmic headwind that will take quite some doing to surmount and get things back on an even keel with a successful ability to compete with other teams and reestablish a better track record. This is often easier said than done. Some of the surface solutions that can begin to turn the tide is when there's new management, new coaching brought in with fresh perspectives and more effective encouragement and upliftment of the team members to help them regain confidence and give them a reason to believe in the possibility of better times. The infusion of money to recruit high-level talent is another wild card that can bring an infusion of optimism along with it, as well as fresh blood, so to speak, untainted by prior failures with the organization in question, and will be starting fresh and unhindered in that respect at least, provided their personal history is not following them to haunt them in a similar fashion. They will be personally under extra pressure because all will look to them as a kind of savior, and they must be ready and stand strong and be resilient and able to overcome their own inner negativity. But that is what the superb top athletes manage to accomplish that makes them special. They are truly super performers with regard to managing their inner emotions and their karma as well. they may be the recipient of much good karma as opposed to the negative sort as a consequence of prior success, and believe in themselves. And this may well be supported also by prior lifetimes as a winner in many settings. And this, just like the negativity that can haunt a subsequent life, will set them up to excel and to find things coming their way easily and effortlessly almost. That is a good sign that karma is on their side. It is earned and is deserved accordingly. But not all karma is one's individual doing. Sometimes good fortune enters in if one is on a trophy-winning team. There is often the energy of a collective effort responsible for the successful season equal to that contributed by the superstars among them. This is amply illustrated by teams where one or two superstars proves to be inadequate to bring about victory on a consistent basis. Hence the universal recognition that ultimately good teamwork must be practiced and in evidence to win the day on a consistent basis.
So what I'm getting out of this is that this is actually a complex dynamic of many intersecting things. You know, some of the manifesting people that think that we just manifest, think positive stuff. There's actually some of that going on here too, obviously. It's not as simple a thing as people probably think it is.
Well, and it won't happen just because of their thoughts alone.
Right.
There's a whole deep energetic consequence of multiple factors. And
yes.
A lot of it is the person's past history.
Yep.
They will not be able to surmount that with magical thinking.
Right.
That they can impose their vision of the outcome on the world. That will influence their own state of mood, for example.
Right.
But it's not going to affect the other team in what
yes.
the other team does.
Right.
It only affects their own motivation, their own sense of confidence, and so on. So it can have an influence.
It's quite the energetic soup. That's definitely the impression I get.
Right.
Okay, the next question. You asked Creator, and this is an interesting one too. Detroit Lions fans enjoyed the amazing talents of two of the best players ever to play football. Running back Barry Sanders and wide receiver Calvin Johnson. Both set numerous NFL records expected to stand for decades. Yet both claimed they would be willing to trade their personal achievements for an opportunity to play and win a Super Bowl, which neither got, being on the Lions team. Both retired early, very deflated, and even bitter that in spite of their amazing personal achievements, the team itself failed them repeatedly. Given the two stories are so similar, what is the karma of being a prodigy for a losing team and experiencing loss at a deep level, in spite of the over-the-top talent and contributions? In spite of their personal achievements, did either or both of the players actually contribute to the losing atmosphere of the team?
Well, this is a very human level question.
Yeah.
And Creator kind of gives a little lesson about that along the way. So this is what Creator says. This is a delicate matter as we do not wish to tarnish individuals by name unduly. One's karma is always the sum total of many factors and also many outside forces. People cannot be expected to overcome huge obstacles created by many other beings around them. So it is not a failing to have too much to contend with in a given lifetime and not perform at a superhuman level because the odds are simply stacked against the individual. This is very much the case with something so dynamic and multifaceted as a sports career, where there is an interplay of so many differing energies and forces and circumstances on the part of the individuals and their collective energies, and that of the opposing teams, which is a further great complication that also has a direct say in all that happens. So we hesitate to make personal characterizations to pin blame on individuals when the situations are always much more complex. So we would simply say that it is possible for someone of tremendous talent to also have within them the karmic destiny of failing, even though they were the presumed favorite to win and winning was expected all along the way by everyone seeing them, knowing them, working with them, or following them in their career. But yet something inexplicably happened to dash everyone's hopes and prove everyone wrong. So this can fit the pattern you cite, where no one can find fault with the individual performance, but somehow fate works against them, and one seems to need to look elsewhere for explanations that the team let them down, or there were other sources of misfortune, or perhaps flagging fan energy, which can be a factor as well in the swirl of karmic forces. You are focusing on the players here, but the energy of the team as a whole is equally important, and the energy of the management and supervising coaching staff, as well as the fan base, and then the opponent team members, their backers, and fans will also be playing a big role energetically in each sporting event that takes place to determine the overall success or failure of each team and their component members and participants on whatever level. So the interplay is complex, and one sees then a composite sum total in the consequences of what happens. There are other sources that influence outcomes as well. There can be manipulation of circumstances, and often at a key juncture when someone needs to make a critical catch of the ball or a forward pass with such precision to prevent an interception when time is running out, and so on. Such feats can be undermined by spirit attachments on board the player, who will seize on an opportunity to distract them in such a way as to undermine performance. So this can be a wild card in things, even with the best of karma supporting them and carrying them along successfully. If players have picked up negative spirit attachments, this will work against them relentlessly, because the goal of such spirits, being parasites, is to ramp up negativity, fear, doubt, and engineer circumstances to cause accidents of all kinds and errors of perception and interpretation both. This can be done by distraction, so they fail to see an onrushing defender, or their mind becomes fogged at a key juncture, and they take too long to make a decision, and then the window of opportunity is closed, and this leads to an error of some kind, being tackled quickly, fumbling the ball, or losing the opportunity to launch a pass to a receiver, because they have all been covered too effectively by defensive players as being examples of what takes place. Given that most players have spirit attachments on board, there are numerous opportunities on both teams for a degradation of performance. So this can be an equal source of interference with success on both sides in an athletic contest, but it can be the deciding factor nonetheless. If such occurrences happen at key points in a game, where a team is about to win and another mistake or miscue prevents a last-minute scoring to turn the tide, it may only take a few such events to actually control the outcome in an athletic contest. So this source of influence cannot be underestimated.
Wow. Wow. I mean, imagine the coach on the sideline thinking, is there going to be spirit attachment interference? Throw the flag. Spirit attachment interference. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, we need a special flag for spirit spirit fouls.
Yeah, exactly. That's fascinating insight.
Yeah, and it speaks to the dilemma of humanity as a whole, because in every walk of life, in every setting, people have spirit attachments. This is just a fact of existence right now, because we've so turned away from spirituality. So many are maybe paying token service to their religious beliefs and worshiping, but not asking for help with these kinds of problems. And so we know if you don't ask specifically for things, the divine cannot give them to you. That's why we're here to point these things out, remind people of what has been known through the ages about the darkness that's out and about and what to do about it. A simple prayer can help remarkably to assist with this kind of problem. But here, what is needed is not so much as, make the spirits behave as remove the spirits and rehabilitate. Yes, get them off the field. That requires a specific request. Well, who's asking for that? You don't.
In the context of professional sports teams, up till now, nobody. But we're going to talk about that. That's something a fan can do if they want to help their team, actually.
Well, and just an anecdote. When I got started at doing remote spirit releasement work, it was at a couple weekend workshop with a colleague who was a consulting hypnotist and did remote spirit releasement work in conjunction with his wife. And I just went as a skeptic just to see what is with this crazy guy doing this weird stuff. And I found at that workshop, I had the intuitive ability to not only see dark spirits in people by tuning in psychically, but I could channel them. And the first one I channeled in this way told me a story. And he was very, very proud of himself. And he talked about being in a general in a long ago battle on horseback. And he reached out and distracted the general's mind at a key moment when an attacker was coming up to the side and turned his attention away, and the general was killed. And it turned the tide of battle.
Sure.
And the spirit was so happy with his handiwork, So it's not
proud of himself.
Yeah, a different kind of contest,
Right.
More about life and death and scoring points, but it shows you the mentality that we're dealing with here.
Absolutely.
They're mischief makers and worse.
We're coming up on a break, Carl. We can maybe slide this last question in quickly if you read fast. Both the Chicago Cubs and Boston Red Sox went more than a century before winning a World Series. Can creator comment on the reasons for such long and deflating losing streaks?
Okay, well, this will probably tie some things together. Creator says, the reasons here parallel the other teachings we have shared with you about how there is a multi-layer influence of human consciousness on sporting events and the outcomes ranging from the individual past karma of all involved in the enterprise, from the players through the team supervision and the fans watching. All contribute energy that can influence the outcome on a game-by-game basis and serve to reinforce a losing or winning tradition. To be sure, there are practical considerations as well of finances and the ability to attract the best players and keep them when a club has the worst reputation in particular. But these circumstances occur only after there has been a series of failings, building the negative perspectives and triggering negative karma to pile on and further punish the losers and represent a very powerful headwind to reverse things and become winners again. So how teams are managed, their salary structure, and other benefits are more a consequence of prior performance than a causal factor in performance going forward.
Well, that is a key insight right there. That, the things that you want to do as a team to improve the situation are really, a consequence of a causal factor that's beyond just coaching and players. And there's a karmic headwind going on. There's a bigger energetic momentum that you have to overcome. It's quite daunting, actually, and that's reflected in the fact that two sports teams win a century apiece without winning a championship.
Well, I'll tell you, the general managers of sports teams could hire me for a lot less than $1 million a year to come in and do spirit removals and karmic repair. Yeah, I could clean up their entire team and the organization and then go to work on the fans.
Sure, yes.
So, this is a lost opportunity.
We'll talk about that in the upcoming segment. Be sure to check us out at getwisdom.com. You can check out our healing services, and healing is a very important thing even in this engender. Check out the healing, and we have spirit releasement, personal clearings. There's a lot of different healing modalities that are available. Also, download our LHP book, which describes how you can become a healer at getwisdom.com/LHP. And we'll be right back right after this. Welcome back to the second segment of Get Wisdom. We are talking about sports teams, winning streaks and losing streaks, and the hidden factors behind them. And in this segment, we're going to talk about winning streaks and how to create them, which is a bit more positive, Carl.
Well, we can always use some positivity, no question about that. I was just here during the break and thinking about all the books of sports statistics. And there are all of these acolytes who pore over them and memorize stats, and they're really looking at the wrong things. They're looking at an end product and not the causal elements. They're not looking at all of the karmic underpinnings of performance and what makes success or what leads to failure.
Yes. And, obviously we're learning here that karmic underpinnings and energies have every much a factor in performance as, working out in the weight room or doing reps on the field or, memorizing the playbook. Someday, in football, we're going to talk about football may not necessarily the best sport to engage in for that, but someday this may be part and parcel of preparing for a sports contest.
Well, that would be an enlightened world for sure.
It would indeed. Let's get on with it. The next question is, contrast the Detroit Lions with the New England Patriots. If there is a team that is the carbon opposite of the Lions, it would be the Patriots. The Patriots have won 6 Super Bowls since 2002 and have appeared in more than that. If the Lions keep losing in unexpected, almost inexplicable ways, the Patriots do the opposite. They win in unexpected, almost inexplicable ways. They won last year's Super Bowl and are on track to win yet another one this year.
All right. And this is creators' comments about all this. What you are seeing with the Patriots is a sum total of positive influences carrying the day, even in the face of individual limitations. What matters more than the innate skill and even athletic prowess is the heart, the inner resolve and conviction that one can be a winner in spite of any liability. Everyone in athletics knows that winning and losing is a consequence of forces that are elusive and somewhat inexplicable, because fortunes will change from day to day in unexpected and unpredictable ways. There is something always intangible about it, except when there are long-running themes in play. The chronic loser that seems to only rarely win, and the chronic winner where they can seem to do no wrong, and even when they do, the other team does worse. The winning record of the Patriots is to some extent the product of crafty choices in player selection, financial support, and so on. But for the most part, is the momentum from prior winning that will continue because it increases the likelihood that it will come again. It is a consequence of the collective energies of positive expectation and the confidence within that fosters, as well as the appeal to positive karma from the history of other lifetimes experienced by the players, rather than hard times and losses that would be triggered when the team is in a slump that can worsen things and then create a real prolonged losing streak that is hard to recover from. Winning streaks, streaks can develop a life of their own and continue from year to year. There is nothing like success to breed success. This is a truism that is the end result, not just of positive expectations being a force for good, but really the alignment of karmic influences to the positive and the confluence of individuals participating with more positive karma than negative in their history. That can, in part, be an occasional statistical benefit that creates a dynasty that carries for a whole generation of winning on average. But there can be many influences on the part of coaching staff and management as well to create the right atmosphere of expectation and encouragement. The support given by those in a supervisory role can be quite instrumental in appealing to the best in the players and helping them to find the inner strength and resolve, often from their own review of prior karmic events, where they were strong enough, they did stand their ground and carry the day. and with that as an inner wellspring of inspiration, will outperform other players who have their past negativity and failures triggered too often. And that is what is re-echoing for them and being an influence on their day-to-day performance. So this is truly a case of winning begetting more winning, and illustrates how karma can line up in your favor when it is the expectation to happen. So there are many factors involved and many points of potential control or influence over all that takes place. Here too there is a tremendous fan base of eager, positive, and loving fans cheering them on and adding their own positive energy into the mix as well. This is no small thing. After all, the players are in many respects playing for the fans. And that is the dynamic and the type of karmic events that will be referenced in thinking about the burdens and the stress and responsibility of each player to add to the overall success and call on the best within themselves to carry the day and be an asset and not a liability.
You know, there is a really interesting insight in here that I had never considered before. The statement, so this is truly the case of winning, beginning more winning, illustrates how karma can line up in your favor when it is the expectation to happen. You know, a lot of people think karma is like fate and it's cast in stone. But here's a line that's telling us that's not necessarily the case, and that whatever our belief quotient is inside can attract or perhaps forestall certain karma that we actually have.
Yes, well, this is the interplay of consciousness with the broader reality and the consequence of all that takes place. If you only focus on your failures, most of us have an understanding that can drag us down, and we won't perform our best. You see this all the time. Many who have gone through school settings and being parts of sports teams, you know, during a gym class or something, and they're not pros, they're not spending lots and lots of their time polishing skills and so on. So they make mistakes and they're awkward at first. And many of us have memories of just not doing well and feeling, you know, humiliated and embarrassed or whatnot. And this is a microcosm of what the pros do day in and day out. And when they have a slump, when they have a bad day, they have to have the inner resolve to put that behind them and bring back into focus the awareness that they are talented and capable. And that makes a difference in itself.
Certainly. Carl, we're going to ask about what we can do about some of this. Would the Lightworker Healing Protocol sessions for a losing team and its members help to right the ship?
All right, and this is our healing modality. We've gotten help from the light to put together. It's very comprehensive. Creator says this would be a superb undertaking. This is a perfect illustration of a practical application for doing an outreach, either through prayer or through using the Lightworker Healing Protocol as a series of high-level informed prayer requests to address every conceivable source of negativity that could adversely impact a sports event by bringing divine healing for the players involved. While this might seem unfair, it is true in the nature of the free will paradigm humans are a part of, that the race is to the swift. Those who are intelligent and informed about the workings of the world and the universe, and especially the existence of the divine realm and the importance of partnering with the divine to achieve personal success and happiness, will have the advantage. That is an outcome of free will. When one ignores the teachings available about the divine, they are charting their course in a particular direction and will have outcomes that flow from those choices. Those who choose to pray, who believe in the divine, and cultivate a relationship with the Almighty will have a significant advantage because they alone will be able to summon divine help to assist them in whatever way they request. What happens to you in life depends on whether you know this, whether you believe it, and whether you believe in yourself as being worthy of divine assistance. And then the sum total of your prior karmic history and the liabilities it reflects counterbalanced against the sum total of the energies in opposition to your desires. This is why life is never easy, but again, many times a win will result from a few pivotal moments where something goes just right. Because for that brief moment, everything works and nothing gets in the way. That is something the divine realm can help to bring about. And it may be just enough to win the day when the rest of the event is not interfered with or altered in any way by the divine. We hesitate to promote the sport of football in any way by pointing out an avenue to further encourage focus on the sport, because it is a highly negative undertaking for health reasons and has been designed to be so and reinforced by the interlopers to be engaged in, despite the toll it takes on human welfare and longevity. This has only recently come to light with the discovery of the chronic traumatic encephalopathy that all too often condemns football players to early death and suffering from dementia. Under these circumstances, we do not recommend anyone take up this sport, regardless of their karmic history and propensity to excel and be a winner by virtue of their karma and extraordinary athletic endowment in the current life. They will be undermining themselves and creating new negative karma of a different sort than related to their sports performance. They will be adding the karmic negativity to return to this form of combat again and again in the future, and likely experience a shortened lifespan again and again as a karmic consequence, as a result of a recurring pattern, condemning them to the same fate over and over again.
So there is indeed a serious, essentially warning to people engaged in football that not is all as it appears to be, and there's hazards involved for sure.
Well, and this is so typical of Creator, because this whole program is largely about how to do sports better, and a lot of it is focused on football, because the questions we've been asking relate to football teams to some extent. Mm-hmm. And so that is kind of karmically making us contributors to the problem.
Culpable. This is to an extent, yes.
Yeah. I mean, trying to make it sound like you can make it better, you can make it more effective, more efficient, more successful, which is true. But when it's promoting something and improving something that drags everyone down karmically by participating, supporting it, and collaborating in it, even as a fan, you're karmically linked to the dementia of all those players and the suffering of their loved ones in their shortened lives. This is how karma works. Sorry, I hate to be a wet blanket, but
we are talking about karma here, and that is really the focus of this. Even though sports is what we're the context in which we're talking about karma, we're really talking about karma at the end of the day about all this. So it's very important.
Well, and my only comment about it is that football doesn't have to be a blood sport. Yes. The game could be altered to use similar skills and talents with a similar structure, but less brutal contact as the point of it.
And creativity, you could probably make it more like, basketball or baseball, which are much safer sports.
Exactly. So these are choices, and we've been programmed to love the sport. We're actually mind controlled to have it as a kind of a mania within us, because the people controlling the world know football is dangerous, and they love making people do things that harm themselves. This is a kind of depravity. So, I wanted to have a lighter themed show this week, but we can't escape the human dilemma. Yes. And it's always in the background. So,
and it's it is interesting that an individual player could come into the sport, excel exceedingly, win all kinds of awards, set records, maybe get some Super Bowl rings, have an idyllic life, and yet they are planting seeds for themselves where they're going to have to come back and do some kind of combat again in the future. They're really greasing the skid karmically for their future. So it's something that all of us need to consider whenever we undertake in life.
Yeah. And, many would say, oh, you guys are, overdoing this. This is a catastrophizing. But, you go watch football players train, what the coaches say to them and egging them on. And it's a brutalization of one another that is encouraged and rewarded lavishly.
Oh, it really is. Yeah.
For being tough, for being savage. That's what they want to bring out. And that's what makes the difference on the field. Those players willing to be truly savage
are the
ones who are successful.
I actually played Little League football when I was a kid. And I played it after I had played a season of baseball and basketball. And I had fun in those sports. And I had a good time as a kid. And my father said, let's play football. And yeah, and my expectation was that'd be every bit as fun as baseball and basketball. Oh my gosh. It was a whole different world, and it was much more brutal, much more oppressive, and much more taxing. And I wasn't very good, so that made it even worse for me personally. If I was good, I might have been able to put up with it, but I wasn't all that skilled. So it was a whole different world. And the coaches yelled at you, screamed in your ear, called you names, even swore. And it was a whole different dynamic. It's not the same as other sports, that's for sure.
Well, and I think that's an example of manipulation.
Yes.
Extraterrestrial manipulation. I know it sounds bizarre, but I'm not making this up. It's pervasive. It affects all of human society on every level. And it's a scourge, and it needs to stop. We need people to pray. So this gets back to using prayer. If you say prayers to have everyone raised up, especially the perpetrators, that can turn the tide.
Well, we're going to talk more about that next. We're up on a break, Carl. So
all right.
When we come back, what hidden forces can influence referees? So come on back. Welcome back to the final segment of Get Wisdom. We are talking about sports and karma, essentially. And in this last segment, we're going to literally blow the whistle on that involves some of the whistleblowers in sports. Bad officiating, Carl. And there's something really negative and dark underlying it all.
Well, it's quite a story.
Let's get on with it. You ask Creator, bad officiating is a disturbing and growing trend in football and is creating quite a bit of anger and frustration for everyone involved. Fans, players, coaches, and owners. All are fed up and confused about how the quality of refereeing has so noticeably degraded in the recent past. It is affecting attitudes everywhere, and all are becoming disillusioned. Is this orchestrated by spirit meddler attachments and or extraterrestrial negative influence, or is it all karmic negativity that has built up over time?
Okay, and this is what Creator says. There are certainly karmic influences, and behavior of all humans are influenced accordingly. So referees with a karmic history of making mistakes will tend to do so in the course of their work officiating sporting events. This is simply human nature at work. But when you add in the ability of onboard spirit attachments, the spirit meddlers, to confound thinking, cause distractions, to confuse things, there are many opportunities during an important game when they can confound the ability of the referees to see critical plays and make wise judgments. The overlay of extraterrestrial manipulation of the mind is yet another level of manipulation. That is why you are seeing a worsening. The other influences have been there all through the ages regarding sporting events and all other human contact where important things take place and are decisive for human affairs and their outcomes. The extraterrestrials are ramping things up across the board to worsen human life and to further undermine their institutions and confidence in themselves and to begin fearing even their existence. They are currently fearing the earth and its environment as though it is working against them and will be their doom. That is one example of the influence and impact of mind control programming. When all is ultimately blamed on humanity, people end up pointing fingers in all directions and missing the true culprits behind much of the human misery on display. While your description of the conspiracy underway is correct, it will be much more than just what they do to referees of sporting events in terms of the ongoing contest working against humanity. But it fits the picture because they are becoming more overt in their actions, more reckless, and causing more extreme manipulations, all the while suppressing critical thinking through mind control of those viewing what takes place, whether in politics, business, or any other discipline. And this is how things will continually worsen and have been for some time now. This worsening is what you are referring to. In a sense, this is a kind of canary in the coal mine you are pointing out to show there has indeed been a change in tactics to be more overt in manipulating people who are performing on live television with millions watching.
Who would have thought that problems with football referees is actually signaling a much bigger and more widespread problem, even crisis for humanity? It's quite an eye-opening thing. But the manipulations that are happening across society. So even though we're focused on sports, there's a bigger problem going on here.
Well, the common element is they love setting people up to fail.
Yeah.
So they set things in motion to encourage them, fan them, and then pull the rug out when they can. So they love to see people cheering for a sports team and putting their heart and soul into it. And then at the last minute, there's a deadly interception that ruins the game for those fans. And they feel empowered, and they thrive on causing suffering of human beings. That's their game. It is a game to them.
Sure.
And even war and promoting it is a game to them.
Yes. And when you have that massive deflation, that ironically creates a nice little energetic meal for the spirit attachments of people too. So there's a lot going on when that kind of thing happens.
Yep.
And we're going to have an object example here. Now, I apologize to everybody. I am actually a Detroit Lions fan, and that's why the Detroit Lions are kind of centerpiece in a lot of these questions. But there was a recent sporting event just a couple weeks ago, that got national attention, and it just so happened to involve the Detroit Lions, so we asked about it. Carl, you asked Creator, last night the Detroit Lions played the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The final score was Packers 23, Lions 22, just a separation of 1 point. Green Bay won the game with a last-second field goal. I don't live in Detroit, but today I had a dozen people who I know who know me that I'm a Lions fan, and who themselves watched the game, came up to me and said the Lions were robbed of the victory, clearly robbed. A couple of them were actually quite angry about it. In fact, there were 3 incidents of bad refereeing that cost the Lions 2 touchdowns in critical moments and clearly made the difference in the outcome of the game. Last night's game continues the curse haunting the Lions. Why did the Lions fall victim yet again?
All right, and Creator says, in this particular game, it was indeed the incorrect calls of the referees that ended up determining the outcome, as the score would have been much different had these events not happened. The culprit here was arranged by the Extraterrestrial Alliance to do a manipulation in the minds of the referees. Having engineered an unwise passion for football in the nation's citizens and created an intense fascination and even addiction to watching a sport that is harmful to the players, they are not satisfied with creating a reason for joy, even though perverse. They want to meddle further and confound the ability to predict the outcome and to create misfortune and unpleasantness to foment discord about the outcomes of individual contests simply because they can. It is a kind of sport for them. They do this in many settings. As you know, they will alter the minds of jurors, determining the verdict in high-profile criminal cases that result in setting free a clearly guilty person or incarcerating one who was innocent. All of this mischief is designed to undermine humanity and sow confusion and doubt in the institutions. This has a cumulative effect in darkening your world. It creates uncertainty, confusion, a lack of confidence in the overall stability and predictability of things, to even trust one's own judgment and instincts. This takes a toll when the world continues failing to conform to expectations and leads to apathy eventually because people give up trying to understand human nature, which seems so volatile and inexplicable at times. All such perceived shortcomings are blamed on human frailty, weakness, inefficiency, lack of education and preparation, or worse, a sinister desire to manipulate the circumstances at hand if there is not, in fact, simple negligence involved. This is yet another way they worsen things.
Wow. One of the things about the outcome of that game is that even Green Bay fans who are recipient of a win, they'll always take a win. They'll always take a win. But I had some Green Bay fans say, I don't really feel we deserve that win. So they were deflated as well. Even the winners were deflated by that experience.
And how do you think those referees feel?
Oh my gosh.
Being vilified and having it all on tape and being replayed again and again and again on all the networks and the sports channels, and for all of time, it'll be enshrined as an example of the worst of the worst.
Yeah, and what did we learn? But it was not anybody's fault that's a human. It was caused by manipulation of the interlopers, the extraterrestrial alliance.
Yeah, and karmically, though, we are responsible because we're ignorant and unaware and complacent. That has to change, and that's why we're here. Not just to spoil your day with all this dark talk, but, it's better to know the truth than to live a lie. That is a fundamental divine principle. We need to be smart. We need to be aware. We need to be open and accepting of possibilities. We're not here to mind control you, but to bring truth forward. And if you can see it and it resonates, or even are willing to consider it, we've done our job. That's all we can do. We can't.
And we are bringing forward.
Yes.
We are bringing forward the Lightworker Healing Protocol, which is a very direct means by which we can affect change in humanity itself as well as in our individual lives. And the next question is involving protocol sessions I actually did for the Detroit Lions, kind of an experiment, actually. So you asked Creator in response to my question, I have actually performed 3 Lightworker Healing Protocol sessions for the team, the Detroit Lions. Can Creator comment on any difference this might make or will likely make over time? It clearly didn't help last night's outing, or did it? And that was the game that they lost to the Packers.
By 1 point.
By 1 point.
With 3 bad calls that would have put points on the board. Yes. All right. And this is what Creator says. Your protocol work was, in fact, of material benefit. The Lions would have won this contest because of your protocol work, in spite of their losing history. And that is reflected in the very narrow loss here, even though there were multiple errors that could have added eventually to the Lions' total score, as all worked against them. But the fact they did lose, although only by 1 point, was because the extraterrestrial psychics were manipulating the minds of the referees at key moments, and this was not possible to block in time to reverse the consequences. So the overall benefits provided by your outreach in the end fell short because of this direct intervention. Keep in mind that the interlopers have free agency and free will, and it is not always possible to prevent their actions. The way to do so is to have enough broad, ongoing healing to turn their society around and raise them up, to give up their evil ways. That is a much larger project than simply helping to protect a team from their mischief. But it is underway, and this is but a small glimpse of the benefits that will happen when both the dark spirits and the extraterrestrial interlopers are removed from the earth plane, and humans will simply be living in a world of their own. Things will go more smoothly and more positively when that is accomplished. It is up to humanity to awaken to the realization they are not fully in charge of their world. That is an illusion. Their decisions and desires can be reversed at any time by the overseers truly running things from behind the scenes.
Carl, we go from talking about referees on the field throwing little yellow flags to healing extraterrestrial interlopers. That's quite a leap, but it's a very important one, and it's one we gladly take.
Well, I don't enjoy bringing forth these revelations because they are so dark. But
Yes.
What am I to do? Knowing what I know and being able to tap in and get divine truth, it has to come forward. It has to come out. People need to get on board with this. Someone sent me a picture of a sign saying, "We are drowning in information while starving for wisdom."
That's a good one. Yeah.
So we're here with some wisdom, and we give it freely. So take it, use it as you wish, but help the world be better.
We're out of time, Carl. Be sure to visit us at getwisdom.com. You can get our prayer book, getwisdom.com/prayer. And we'll be back next week with more Get Wisdom. Thanks, Carl.
Bye-bye.